Tourism. Introduction. The rapid growth of a region will dynamically progress with the growth of other sectors, such as tourism. Tourism situated within a region is not a standalone entity. Instead, it is an integral part of the spatial planning system integrated with other sectors. The completeness of service facilities in an area will enhance the tourism value in that region. Indirectly, facilities initially intended as public facilities in the region gradually evolve into facilities with tourism value and attraction. Service facilities can include the availability of infrastructure, facilities, and amenities in the area, in the form of transportation networks and accommodation provision. The increasing human demand for tourism also influences the dynamics of tourism facilities accessed by individuals, both in terms of interest and diverse tourism activity destinations. Local hospitality, preservation of local traditions and culture, unique culinary potential, and offers of relaxation and recreation in a peaceful atmosphere characterize tourism. Tourist villages often embody a tourism concept showcasing activities reflecting the traditions or distinctive features of a region in the form of educational and entertaining activities. In this course, we will explore the concepts and business of tourism with a focus on cultural aspects. Tourism is not just about physical destinations, but also involves cultural richness as a primary attraction. We will discuss the fundamental concepts and business strategies of tourism that deeply understand, appreciate, and leverage the cultural richness of a destination. This form of tourism is marked by deep engagement with the heritage, traditions, and unique lifestyle of a community, allowing tourists to truly immerse themselves in the authentic and distinctive aspects of local culture. Culture becomes the main attraction that distinguishes tourism destinations, and engagement with local culture creates a richer experience for tourists. Cultural tourism also makes a significant contribution to the preservation and promotion of cultural heritage. Tourism and hospitality businesses compete not only at the international level, but also operate corporately through institutional investors and profit-oriented approaches through cost control and revenue management. Throughout the tourism service chain, tourism services are jointly produced in a multi-segment and multi-constellation virtual network with partners and competitors from various specializations. Additionally, their services combine physical and digital aspects, non-material aspects that no longer demonstrate the same level of competition in consumption, but threaten the idea of specific rewards from interactions between hosts and guests. This is a challenge also faced by other industries. Quoted from McGrath, 2010. Overall, the actors, activities, and transactions involved in creating value for travelers and capturing value from these activities have become much more complex. As demonstrated by contributions in the Tourism Review Special Edition on Business Models in Tourism, business models as a concept and perspective help entrepreneurs, managers, and researchers understand the challenges in managing and innovating their business activities in the current market environment. Concept. Cultural tourism, arguably, is regarded as the original form of tourism considering its roots in the Grand Tour originated in the 16th century in Britain. Quoted from Hibbert, 1969, Pfeiffer, 1985. However, trying to define this concept is more challenging as it may sound. This complex concept may have different meaning for different people. McKercher and Ducros, 2002, discussed the number of definitions for cultural tourism nearly matches the number of cultural tourists. According to a study conducted by European Commission regarding habits of cultural consumption for Europeans in 2002, people tend to visit galleries and museums abroad as frequently as they do at their homes. European Commission in 2002, although this issue highlights an emerging concern for cultural activities, it also manifests a contradiction regarding the difference between cultural tourism and cultural visits taken place at home. Quoted by Richards, 2003. In general, cultural tourism may be explained as the very nature of traveling in order to understand and become familiar with way of life and history of a specific location accompanied by a range of cultural factors which can be presented in the context of tourism. These factors may include the food, entertainment, architecture, drink, handcrafted and manufactured products, or every element representing characteristics of way of life in a particular destination. Quoted by McIntosh and Goldner, 1990. In addition, several non-cultural and non-educational activities may provide opportunities for familiarizing tourists with each other in a destination. In order to clearly define the concept of cultural tourism, it is first necessary to have a basic understanding of two complex definitions of culture and tourism. However, it should be noted that recognizing the two concepts of culture and tourism separately is considered as a prerequisite for defining cultural tourism. The definition of cultural tourism itself is quite different and should not be assumed as a combination of the meanings of these two terms, culture and tourism. Tourism. The known definitions of tourism is divided into two categories: the conceptual definition of tourism, dealing with the core meaning of tourism, and the technical definition of tourism, focused on evaluating and measuring the value of tourism, which is particularly variable in different countries. 1. Conceptual definition. The temporary short-term movement of people to destinations outside the places where they normally live and work, and activities during their stay at these destinations. It includes movement for all purposes, as well as day visits and excursions. 2. Technical definition. The activities of persons during their travel and stay in a place outside their usual place of residence for a continuous period of less than 1 year, for leisure, business, or other purposes. Culture. Culture is a very complex concept. Hundreds of definitions for it are in literatures. Generally, culture is viewed as a complex whole, which delivers a unifying concept for the extensively varied ways of life. Trying to describe culture in a single, broadly acceptable definition, therefore produces a level of generalization, which renders the act of definition useless. Quoted by Richards, 1996. The main usage of the term cultural tourism involves the consumption of a wide range of cultural manifestations like heritage, art, folklore, and etc. by tourists. Cultural tourism can be generally seen as a socio-cultural relationship between people, which is promoted, moderated, and mediated by a range of various actors including planners, politicians, researchers, marketing professionals, travel agencies, and so on. Cultural tourism can be regarded as a meeting between social systems and cultures which will produce changes in both of them. Quoted by Smith, 1992. As a social practice, cultural tourism reconstructs or constructs identities, nationalism, social identities, and transnationalism, and will eventually contribute to globalization and framing a globalized world. Quoted by Bowman, 1999. Bonink, 1992, identifies two approaches regarding the definition of cultural tourism: the sites and monuments approach, focusing on explaining the type of attractions visited by cultural tourists, which mainly describes culture as a product. Quoted by Richards, 1996. This quantitative approach simply assumes cultural tourism as a consumer of cultural attractions and proposes a relatively limited view of the motivations and activities of cultural tourists, thus restricting its analysis to specific attractions and sites. For instance, site and monument approach of cultural tourism typically consider the following attractions and sites as intangible and tangible expressions of culture, which attracts cultural tourists. Quoted by ECTAR, C 1989. Business cultural heritage tourism. What is the meaning of cultural heritage tourism? According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, is movements of persons for essentially cultural motivations such as study tours, performing arts and cultural tours, travel to festivals and other cultural events, visits to sites and monuments, travel to study nature, folklore or art, and pilgrims. CHT aims to understand, appreciate, and preserve cultural heritage while making a positive contribution to the local economy and the preservation of cultural identity. The importance of sustainable and responsible development of CHT is emphasized by the United Nations World Tourism Organization, advocating for policies and practices that involve the participation of local communities, consider environmental sustainability, and ensure fair benefits for all stakeholders involved in the tourism industry. Two types of tourism activities closely related to cultural heritage and historical legacy are cultural tourism and heritage tourism. Poria et al. 2006 define heritage tourism as any visit to cultural heritage, natural sites, or historical artifacts, irrespective of visitors' motivations and perceptions of the site's attribute. The definitions of heritage tourism and cultural tourism sometimes overlap, and the use of these terms is often interchangeable due to their close relationship. Nevertheless, there is a fundamental difference between heritage tourism and cultural tourism. Cultural tourism can be defined as a special interest tourism that emphasizes the exploration and participation in new and profound cultural experiences, encompassing aesthetic, intellectual, emotional, and psychological aspects. Cultural tourism may include visits to museums, galleries, festivals, art performances, and historical sites, including cultural heritage sites. Heritage tourism, on the other hand, places more emphasis on the place or implies that tourism activities should be conducted at specific heritage sites in situ, whereas cultural tourism does not emphasize the place aspect because cultural tourism activities, such as observing and learning about a culture, can take place either ex situ or outside its original location. The development of cultural heritage tourism, CHT, represents a unique and potentially inconsistent combination between commercial business and cultural property, often bordering on what is considered sacred. Therefore, it is crucial to identify key success factors that heritage managers can adopt to avoid a series of business failures. Ho and McKercher, 2004, identified 4 key factors related to unsuccessful efforts in developing CHT in various locations in Hong Kong. These factors include 1. Lack of heritage managers' understanding of market expectations related to the nature of the experience at heritage sites. 2. Insufficient assessment of the tourism potential of a site in terms of its attractions and visitor capacity. 3. Absence of goals and priorities in site management to provide a tourism experience. And ultimately, 4. Lack of connection between site management as a heritage asset and development and promotion for tourism. These factors indicate a lack of skills and a general understanding of tourism product development, markets, and marketing by cultural heritage site managers in Hong Kong. The Australian Heritage Commission in 2001 emphasized the need for basic business skills, particularly strategic planning, a significant factor also identified by Ho and McKercher, 2004. Establishment of a business plan requires a clear and uni-ed management approach to the CHT operation, as well as engagement with stakeholders. Confusion of concepts and objectives may result in inefficient operation or inappropriate decision-making. Heritage, by its very nature, is prone to such problems given the tension between conservation and commercialization. The often high costs of maintenance combined with limited revenue from visitors and changing government funding arrangements. Quoted from Fial and Garrett, 1998. However, the adoption of a business plan is not in itself a guarantee of success. Indeed, in some cases, it has been specifically noted that troubled attractions had professional business plans. Quoted from Frost, 2003. Operations were broadly classy ed according to the level of commercial focus apparent as indicated by available marketing collateral, promotional material, website content, and observation of places. Commercialization was considered in terms of the level of physical alteration of a place subsequently imposed by operators for the purposes of commercial functionality. Focusing on the tangible alteration of place presented a more practical option than attempting to discern the extent to which representations of the intangible had become commodified, the latter being more reliant on personal beliefs of individuals rather than physical evidence. Rather than deeming a dichotomy, classification was based on a gradient between the highly commodified and the minimally commodified CHT operation. Highly commodified CHT places could consist of reconstructed representations of heritage or strong elements of physical modification specie cali for tourism and or commercial development purposes. Minimal commercial focus could relate to CHT places with little or no evidence of physical modification of historic artifacts for tourism or other commercially oriented purposes, but excludes conservation or preservation-focused activities to maintain value of the place.
Yes, see you on
Feel
the
okay?
top.
Feeling good?
Okay, see you on the top.
Yes.